So we'll come to sit or lay down. You might have some props with you, being comfortable, whatever that means. You might come into a cross-legged shape. You might have the legs straight out. You might lay down, right? Or even end up in child's pose. So just starting your practice however you want. And you might even shift around for a moment or two before you allow the eyes to close. And then once the eyes close, let yourself settle into stillness. And just begin to arrive, whatever that means. Drawing the senses inward, arriving into the space of our bodies, arriving into the sounds and textures of our breath, and settling into that gaze at the backs of the eyelids. Notice here that meditative gaze, that meditative presence that begins to join us. And by drawing our senses inward, how are we allowing ourselves to honor this sensitive space, to listen to these internal cues? There is that softening, there is that release, there is that sensitivity. Sensitivity not meaning weakness, but sensitivity to be consciously aware, opening ourselves up to listen to those internal cues. We use these cues throughout practice. Maybe putting your foot over here, putting your hand over there, maybe stretching less or stretching more. And these internal cues guide us and are with us throughout all of our many conversations, experiences. And if we stay tuned in and sensitive, meaning consciously aware to these internal cues, we'll notice how efficient they are in guiding us. And whether we act upon them is a whole other story. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but observing our internal cues today. And honoring that inner communication with ourselves and our body. So with that in mind, let's find a few cleansing breaths. Together, let's inhale through the nose. And open the lips to exhale. Again, like that, deep breath in. And a deep breath out. One more time. Full inhale. And then open the lips to exhale. And begin to observe that warmth. That warmth within the muscles of the face, the muscles of the chest, the muscles within the belly. You can keep your hands relaxed within the lap, or you can gather them into prayer at heart center. And as we fully open up our space, you might find another cleansing breath, or you can join me for the sound of Om. But together, we'll take a deep breath in. Om. Very gently bowing your chin to the chest. Take a moment to allow the breath and the vibrations to settle within the heart space, reverberating off the walls of the inner body, and sealing our intentions for practice. And then from here, you can slowly open the eyes and bring the hands away. We'll come out of our seated position slightly, or if you're laying down, you'll come back up to sit, so that we can start in a forward fold. I'm just going to turn to the side so that you can see me. Now, you might still find that pillow or blanket to prop the tailbone. Soles of the feet come together, knees out wide, as we start our practice this evening with a forward fold for butterfly. Now, in the event that you don't want to fold so deeply, you might just wrap some props around you. If you'd like to use your blocks at any height, you'll stack some pillows and blankets and bolsters and things. Maybe bringing everything a little bit closer to your shins, and then you can lower your forearms down. You might scrunch up that pillow or blanket to prop your forehead. And again, just using the props in any which way as you allow yourself to fold. Okay, so no better or worse. Automatically here, we're using those internal cues to guide us into the best shape, at least to begin. And then as we close our eyes and settle into stillness, the cues might become a little more subtle, but the cues might also come a little more detailed, a little more enhanced. And you can follow them as they assist you within the practice. Beginning to observe the sensations of stretch. And sending your breath to these areas within the body. And then, of course, whenever you're ready, you might keep your awareness here, focused on the sensation, or you might begin to let it explore. And as your awareness explores the rest of the body, noticing any unnecessary tension, noticing any clenching or gripping, we can allow ourselves to gently release. And as we start to soften and let go within the muscles, bones, organs within the body, the sensitivity of the internal cue might grow a little louder. It might be a little more clear. As we're wiping away, spreading any fogginess, and so that we can arrive open-mindedly and open-heartedly into this experience of the stretch. And checking in with your breath. Continue to gravitate towards stillness. Let's spend a few more breaths in this butterfly shape. And And then from here, keeping the eyes closed or the gaze soft, let's begin to press down into the floor, slowly lifting our head and chest. You might even pause once the spine is straight. You might help your legs unravel one at a time. And following, again, that internal cue, that intuitive guidance, the personalized movements, right? Whatever word you're comfortable claiming it as, you can describe it that way. But just taking those natural movements of release, anything that counters the fascia, continuing to allow it to breathe, continuing to allow it to reclaim space, until you arrive into that comfortable moment of stillness, finding that meditative pause, whether you're seated or laying down on the back or belly. And we'll take that moment here and rebound. That moment to observe. That moment to feel the imprint of that previous stretch become absorbed through the layers within the body. Continue to allow yourself to soften even here. And then if you're in the middle of something and you'd like to stay in rebound a little longer, you're more than welcome to. When you're ready, you might even take a movement as you awaken from your rebound. And then we're all going to meet on the belly for open wing. No rush, but you'll get there in your own time. Arriving on the belly, you might have a pillow or a blanket to support the head. Okay, no rush to get there. But once you are on your belly, your left arm is going to come out to that T shape so that you can roll into the shoulder with the left hand behind you. So if I were to bring my left arm out to T and roll into the shoulder, I might want to start with my knees in the chest. Right? I might want to start with my legs straight out. Maybe my right leg drops back. Maybe the right knee bends and the foot is placed somewhere behind the thigh, in front of the left thigh. But again, just following those internal cues, at least to begin. You can always change later on. And then from there, your right hand is always welcome to stay in front of the chest, or it can reach up and around the low back to take a half bind. You might try a few different variations until the body is ready to settle, until the body is ready to have the eyes closed. Eyes closing, not to tune anything out, only to allow ourselves to tune inward. Begin to soften when you're ready. And as you soften and let go of the unnecessary tension, the unnecessary gripping, we allow the fascia to continue to stretch and uncoil within the space of our bodies. And from time to time, you'll check in with the breath. From time to time, checking in with the gaze at the backs of the eyelids. And just noticing what presents itself here. Notice how helpful it could be as we listen to these internal cues. That internal guidance or mentorship. We'll spend a few more breaths here in open wing. And of course, you can stay a little longer. But if you're ready to release, we'll make sure that right palm lifts up and it's placed back in front of the chest if it was behind you. Taking your time as you guide the legs one on top of the other. And then you'll slowly drift out of this left shoulder onto the belly, allowing yourself to release fully from the stretch. Placing the hands wherever is most comfortable. And if you'd like to, you can rock side to side into the hips. You might kick the feet up and windshield wiper the knees from side to side. You might even come to your palms or your forearms or some sort of shape to pull the heart forward, extending the spine. And that might gravitate you back towards your chest unless you push the hips up and back and find a child's pose or a down dog or a cat-cow. Just following that wave of energy from the body, finding and following that internal cue. And then it's from this space where we can pause and rebound. I never really enjoy open wing as a stretch, but I always enjoy the rebound. So allowing yourself to notice here the subtle sensations of the stretch. This flourishness of breath within the body. And just noticing that hum or buzz of awareness. And if you'd like to stay in rebound, you're more than welcome to do so. But if you're choosing to release, We might gravitate back towards the belly, take any movements along the way. And then we'll allow ourselves to rotate into the opposite side. Right arm coming out to T, or whatever arm you didn't do yet. Once that arm is out to T, we'll roll into the shoulder. And any props for the head, any props for the shoulders, any prop even for the bottom hip, whatever you might need. And as you find the best variation for the legs, left arm can always stay in front of the chest here, or it can reach up and around the low back as you take a half bind. And as we arrive here, begin to observe. Sometimes the breath may want to tighten, especially in the beginning of a stretch. But observe the way the body can adapt. Let the breath continue to move through, whether it's natural breath or specific guided type of breathing. Just making sure it's present. And the internal cues that we might notice could be in the physical body, but they can also come from the space within the mind or heart. The internal cue of needing to think about something, the internal cue needing to think about the feeling of something. If it's coming up, it's an internal cue. So as we notice every part that presents itself, whether it's from the physical or energetic aspect of the body, you want to find that importance, hold that validation, and maybe uncover through the webbing of the fascia what it represents. And continue to find yourself softening here. Softening into the layers of the body, into the layers of tissue. If you'd like to stay a little longer, you're always welcome to. But if you're choosing to release, if you have one arm back behind you, we'll want to guide it in front of the chest. Making sure to have one leg on top of the other. And you can begin to slowly roll out of this right shoulder, drifting out of the stretch and back onto the belly. Or you might pause for a moment to take a breath. You might find some counter movements, whether it's the rocking of the hips, the windshield wipering of the knees, the extension of the spine, any other movements along the way. No right or wrong here. And then, of course, once you feel that you've taken enough, we can find that comfortable space to rebound. That moment where we get to resonate and embody with that previous experience. Where we feel the echoes of the fascia while the tissue contracts back. Feeling the recalibration of the nervous system, the resetting in some way. And if you'd like to stay here a little longer, you're more than welcome to do so. If you're choosing to release from rebound, you might find a movement or two coming back to a seated shape. No rush to get there, but I'll start talking about the next stretch because I'm going to give us two options, something that we normally do, and then you have an option to do something different. So when we come to take banana here, we're going to be on our backs. We're going to walk our torso. Our hands don't need to grab onto the wrist or interlace the fingertips. We want our palms open. And then as we gravitate towards the left, torso and lower body curving to the left, right? And normally we might cross the right ankle. Normally we might bend that right knee and step the foot outside of the left thigh. And you can still do that. But if you'd like to, you can bend that right knee and take half butterfly through the curvature of banana. So the left leg continues to curve, your torso continues to curve if you choose to have this right knee opened out to the side. Okay, and I can, if you want to try that and it interests you, maybe it interests you now, maybe it interests you later. Well, a few more things. If you want to prop that right shoulder or the back of the head with a pillow or a blanket, you can do so. You might even want to prop the forearms. I'll let you know though when we're about halfway in the stretch, just in case you want to do a few variations. You might want to try this knee bent out to the side, but you might also really want to straighten that right leg as well, or vice versa. So I'll let you know when we're halfway. But for now, choosing the best variation to begin. And then we'll allow the eyes to close. And as the eyes close, we'll settle into stillness. Observing sensations in the lower body, middle of the body, upper body. No right or wrong place to feel a stretch or to feel sensation in general. But as you soften, as we let go of any clenching or gripping, any tensing within the body, we want to allow these internal cues to flourish alongside the breath. How often do we ignore internal cues? Sometimes pushing internal cues to the back burner because we have to get this done, or because we're having a conversation that for some reason we feel like we need to keep having rather than saying, oh no, I need my space, or let's talk about this later, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe you go back and forth, right? Observing internal cues that you may have received previously, what you've done in response to that cue. But in what ways can the practice here and today continue to create and build that foundation? That solid sensitivity, that solid connection in understanding these internal cues or guidance. We're about halfway here if you are interested in switching things up. But if not, you can stay exactly where you are and maybe switch at another time. That halfway mark might be a good time to soften again. Noticing more reclaimed space within the body. Staying present within the shape. Notice how sensation may have traveled, shifted. Maybe it's steady in just one particular place. Taking one more full cycle of breath. And as we keep the upper body still, let's first unravel the legs in case they were in a particular variation. You might guide the legs back to center or begin bending into the knees and bring the feet flat to the floor. But once the lower body's steady, you can begin to release the upper body, picking up the head and shoulders, coming back to center to neutralize the spine. Maybe the arm settles down by the hips as we possibly windshield wiper the knees to side. You might hug the knees into the chest and wrap around the shins or thighs. And of course, taking any movements here as you release from that previous stretch. Those counter movements are transitioning us into that space to rebound. Noticing any depth to the breath. Noticing subtle sensations. Feeling that imprint from the previous stretch. In some ways, we're stopping to smell the roses here. Taking a moment to observe and reflect. And if you'd like to stay a little longer, you're more than welcome to stay here. But if you're choosing to move into our banana shape on the right side, you might find some movements to awaken the body, even if it's just a roll to the wrist or a roll to the ankle. And then we'll begin to curve our upper and lower body to the right. Now again, you might need that pillow for the back of the head, shoulder, forearms, in any way to support. You always have the option to keep the left leg straight, ankle crosses over the right, foot steps outside of the right thigh. And then of course today, if you ever want to take half butterfly through the curvature of banana, you're welcome to. I'll again let us know when we're at that halfway point so that if you do want to change variation, you're welcome to it. And if the stretch feels a little longer, then that's because it is. We're holding this one a little longer. But remembering that you are never stuck. So if at any point you want to stay longer even than that, or even release sooner, you're always welcome to listen and honor that internal cue. And settling into the shape here. As we observe the sensation, almost in amazement at what the body's going to express here. And through our gentle observations, we begin to relax into the body and release into the body. Letting go of unnecessary tension, letting go of unnecessary control. Letting go of anything that might hinder the stretch, hinder the experience, or anything that might hinder an internal cue. You're more than welcome to stay where you are. We're at the halfway point, though, if you're choosing to change variation in some way. And it doesn't mean you have to go deeper. It doesn't mean you have to release a stretch. It just, if you want to look for something different, you're welcome to. We want the body's experience and the fascia to guide us through their internal cues if we choose to deepen a stretch rather than let time dictate that. Our yin practice is not described in the way of 30 seconds left, go more. If we get the cue, we'll follow, and if not, we'll stay where we are. Checking in with your breath. And checking in with the gaze at the backs of the eyelids. Noticing your presence within the body. Maybe finding one more full cycle of breath. And then as we keep the upper body where it is, let's first unravel the legs, taking your time to let the legs awaken. And then when you're ready, you can begin to unravel through the upper body. Whether the arms and hands stay above the head or come to lower by the body. Finding that stillness, but then maybe finding some movement. If it feels good to counter the stretch in some way, whether it's the lift of the knees or the lift of the arms. But then when you're ready, you'll pause. Noticing that reclaimed space, that open-mindedness, open-heartedness. and even a sense of relief to the body. As that fascia deknots, detangles, and uncoils from within itself. Pausing here within that moment of observation. In that moment of reflection. And then from here, you're welcome to stay in rebound exactly where you are. Or we'll unravel. We might awaken, finding a few more counter movements. Eventually, if you are laying on your back, you might roll to one side of the body. And then as you gently press down into the floor, we'll travel back to a seated shape, but no rush to get there. Take your time, taking any movements along the way. And then as we come back to our awareness, I'll start talking about our next stretch here. So if you have blocks, I'm going to give us a bunch of variations. In the event, though, that you do have blocks that you're practicing with, you might bring them close by so that we can talk about praying mantis if you choose to come into praying mantis. So you might have the blocks on a vertical setting. This would be more stretch. You might have the blocks on the horizontal. That's probably the best place to begin at least, but you might need less stretch and bring them completely flat. Okay, so if I bring my blocks here, I'm going to bend at my elbows to bring my triceps to the blocks, and as I walk my knees back, I'll lower my head down. Arms can relax on my neck or on my upper back. This might be a great stretch. You might even bring the knees out into child's pose as you lower. But of course, if you're looking for more, you'll allow the knees to walk back. So I wouldn't do it that way. So the way I would do it, bring my knees closer, elbows down as you walk the knees and hips back, then you lower down. So that's the easiest way to transition into the stretch if you're going to go a little bit deeper. And then as the head comes down, the head might dangle here, or the head might completely touch the ground. And that's okay too, just depends on your neck, and it depends on how high the blocks are. Of course, in the event that you want to prop the head, you might bring a layer of pillow or blanket, depending on how wide or thin you can fold it. Okay. In the event, though, that you're not practicing with blocks, in the event that you're not interested in praying mantis, you're more than welcome to take child's pose, though. Knees will be as wide as the mat. Arms will lower down, forehead lowers. As you bend your elbows, same thing. Hands are going to come back and relax onto the neck or the upper back. You'll walk your elbows out a little bit farther to engage in a stretch. So you'll keep inching your elbows out a little farther, a little farther, a little farther, as you notice stretch anywhere underneath the arms or side body. And playing around here, elbows might even stay unbent. Arms are just resting on the blocks. You might have to place the knees differently from time to time. You might even place the blocks differently from time to time. Just finding the best angles and placements for you. Wherever you are, we'll allow the eyes to close. Can you begin to relax the eyes if they're squinting? Relaxing into the jaw, relaxing into the tongue as we soften through the muscles of the face. Relaxing through the sides of the neck to feel the throat open. Releasing through the shoulders. Releasing through the collarbones. Releasing down through the sides of the rib cage as you soften through your chest, diaphragm, and belly. Relaxing into the hips. If you notice the glutes clenched, soften into the skin here. Relaxing into the outer and inner thighs as we breathe into the skin behind the knees. Softening through the calves. Softening through the ankles and down into the soles of the feet. You might even notice some space between the toes. Even noticing space between the fingers here with the palms relaxed. And with our head lower towards the floor, we still want the breath present, but the breath doesn't have to be deep. Sometimes if we breathe too deeply with the head down, it's like a rush of oxygen to the head. So just be mindful, but keep the breath present. You might take another round of softening. Taking another moment of observation. And we'll keep our upper body where it is. But if your knees are back behind you with your tailbone lifted, we'll start to walk the knees back underneath the chest. You might even lower the hips to the heels. But when you're ready, you can begin to press the elbows down as you start to lift the head and chest. Arms will straighten out. You might even still be on the blocks here. Or you completely press down, maybe removing the blocks, settling into a child's pose shape. Maybe the hands reach back by the feet. Or maybe you come out of it all together. You end up on your belly, you end up on your side body, maybe you even roll to the back. And again, just following those counter movements. There's no right or wrong way to release. The counter movement being that sensitive internal cue. And it feels good to listen to the internal cues. Sometimes the mind huffs and puffs. Sometimes the mind feels inconvenienced, but that's just the perception of the mind. It feels good to follow that internal cue. I'm just taking a moment to pause. And if you're in the middle of something within your rebound, if you'd like to stay in your rebound, you're welcome to. But when you're ready, you're also welcome to slowly open the eyes. You might take a couple more movements, but we'll come back to a seated shape in case you are laying down. Let's transition here to our toe stretch. We are also going to come into ankle stretch too. So in case you know that you like to use a certain props for which one, you're welcome to just gather everything. But in terms of our toe stretch, we might find a blanket to support the knees. Once the knees are there, your toes will tuck, and you actually might even use the blocks here, even in toe stretch. Maybe your forearms come down. Maybe you even do another praying mantis thing and bring the head down and the arms back behind you. But of course, you can sit back on the heels as well. Hands might rest on the lap. Hands might rest off the body. Chin is neutral, or forehead can lower. So whatever is best for you. And as we arrive into our toe stretch, greeted with sensations in the toes, in the feet, in the ankles, the shins. Noticing the benefits of softening here. As we soften and let go of unnecessary tension, unnecessary gripping, we're greeted with more breath. Let that internal breath guide you and mentor you throughout your stretch. Again, you might check in with the gaze at the backs of the eyelids. Continue to notice, continue to observe. And we'll take one more cleansing breath. So let's inhale through the nose. And as we open the lips to exhale, you can begin to hinge off of the feet. Palms can lower down. And 1 foot at a time, you'll begin to untuck the toes. And as the feet transition there, it could feel good to drum the top of the feet. If you'd like that, you can also just pick up the feet and shake them or roll into the ankles, just wiggling throughout the feet and toes. Okay, and then from there, we'll start to prep for ankle stretch. Now, in the event that you're not interested in ankle stretch, you can always take a block or even 2 blocks and come to sit in Virasana or Hero's pose, especially if that gives you a stretch in the quads, the shins, or the ankles. But in the event that it doesn't, you're welcome to find some pillows or blankets sitting on your heels so the toes aren't tucked, right, as if you were in Virasana. But then as you pick up your knees and shins, you're going to prop. In the event that you need an extra prop underneath your ankle bone, if your bone is uncomfortable against the floor, you might want to do that as well. And then it's always interesting when we do this because, for example, my ankles, I don't know if it's helpful to see it, but my ankles like externally rotate and my heels are pointing out. So my ankle joint naturally does that, and I can still get a pretty good stretch if I just let my heel turn out. But really, when I challenge myself by tucking my heels in and guiding my heels in towards my glutes, I mean, now I can't even lift my knees. There's no way. I already have enough stretch by just doing that. So feel free to play around, right? Like following the body. Do you want to do maybe what you're quote unquote good at, but then find a deeper stretch, right? Like now that feels great for me. Or do you find a different rotation and hold that there instead? Still a pretty deep stretch because it's something new for the body. So you're welcome to play around here. Knees definitely don't have to be lifted right now. By me hugging my heels in, I can't even lift the knees if I wanted to. So find that best place to pause, that best place to arrive into your stretch. Hands can relax wherever. Chin can be neutral, or you can lower the chin, relaxing through the jaw, relaxing through the neck, relaxing through the shoulders. Sending the breath towards the lower body. We'll keep the upper body softening. And we'll observe the way in which the body adapts. The mind continuing to perceive and also give information. Allowing the fascia to uncoil, detangle, as we create more slack within the body to not just become flexible, but also pliable. And again, as we close out this ankle stretch, we'll find a cleansing breath. We'll inhale through the nose. Open the lips to exhale. And as you're ready to begin to release, you'll begin to hinge forward there. Palms lower down. You might hinge all the way forward into tabletop. Again, walking the knees a little closer. If it feels good, you can drum the top of the feet. You can shake the ankles. Roll around the toes. And then we might swing the legs around, come back to sit. Sometimes I even like to rub my feet a little bit or rub my ankles after that stretch. Usually too within the feet, I always get it like right at that Achilles point. So it's going to be different every time. You can notice what you feel. Okay, awesome. Now our feet are breathing. Let's do one more thing before we come to Shavasana. So you might prep the lower body for Shavasana how you normally would. If you wanted something underneath the knees, if you're going to want to take a blanket to cover the body, you might prep for that. But then we're going to find our block, whether it's on the horizontal or completely flat height, what's best for you. And then moving your hair just in case it's long and you don't want to lay on it. You'll find the base of the skull, top of the neck there, somewhat in that line, against the edge of the block. Right? And if you just place the head there, you might already feel something. But you're welcome to turn the chin left to right. You're welcome to move the chin in circles. And just noticing any of these areas that are somewhat sensitive, that might even feel like a bruise or a softer spot. That's an area indicating tight fascia. But we'll relax the jaw, relax the tongue. You might have your hands near the body, away from the body, maybe even up above the head if that interests the shoulders. Notice as well how the rest of the body is responding, right? Because sometimes if we have the sensitive area being activated along the neck or along the head, along the skull, sometimes your belly might inflate and your back is arching. You don't even realize it. Right? But if we're subconsciously holding unnecessary tension, can we soften through the muscles of the back? Can we relax the belly and the glutes? while still settling into this layer of discomfort. And as you breathe here, you can continue to turn the chin left to right, all the way even towards the ear. Continue to utilize that entire length of the block. But of course, if you find a sweet spot, you're welcome to just hover there in stillness until the neck or the chin is ready to move a little more. Of course, tucking the chin or lifting the chin up will guide you to different angles. And just following those intuitive cues as you explore. We'll be here for a few more breaths. And then whenever you're ready, you'll bring the chin back to neutral. You'll have your arms come to reach up above the head, and as they find that block, picking up the head, slowly lowering down, and taking a breath of release. Instead, you might find a pillow or a blanket to support the head that way in Shavasana. And taking your final last movements, maybe finding any extra props if you're using something specific, as we allow ourselves to become fully comfortable here. Arms and hands relax, legs and feet relax. And as we gravitate back towards stillness, allowing ourselves to absorb the entirety of our practice, we'll welcome ourselves to Shavasana. Very gently, let's begin to deepen our breath, arriving back into the space of our bodies, the space of our rooms, and into the room we energetically share. Beginning to notice the tilt of the chin and the placement of the hands and feet, we'll start to welcome gentle movement, awakening through the wrists and ankles, maybe even tilting the chin from side to side. But when you're ready for a little more, you can reach the arms up and above the head, taking a full body stretch. And as you take that full body stretch, you might bend one knee in at a time, feet coming flat to the floor. If it feels good, you can hug the knees into the chest, wrapping around the body in some way. And by rocking side to side on the spine, you can intuitively roll to the left or to the right. No rush. Bottom arm might even serve as a pillow for the head. And you can stay here to end your practice, or you might gently press down into the floor and come all the way back up to sit. But of course, just do whatever is best for you, following that intuitive internal cue. And then as we gravitate back towards stillness, we'll reclose the eyes in case they've opened. Taking a moment to reflect on practice. Noticing the natural lift within the body, the expansion of the breath, and any clarity within the heart or mind. You can keep your hands relaxed within the lap, or you can gather them into prayer at heart center. Let's find one cleansing breath here as we close our space. Inhale through the nose. Open the lips to exhale. And as we gently bow our chin to the chest, thank you for practicing with me this evening, being elevated through yoga. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Let me know if you need anything, if you have any questions, if you need any movements. But thanks for coming, and I hope everybody has a good night.